Okay, I won't repeat what I said to begin with. And my deepest apologies, Curtis. And now here at home, let us light our chalices. Today's reading is by Melanie Davis. It's called A Spark of Hope. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Our opening hymn is number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. Please rise, either in body and spirit, and join us in singing.
I'm Reverend Joanna. Today is a precious gift. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And I'd like to take a moment to give a special welcome to anyone who is joining us for the first time. Rather than gathering because we all have the same beliefs, we are an intentional community gathered around our shared promise to support each other's individual spiritual journeys. We are also intentional about bringing all ages together. That in today's world, that doesn't often happen just automatically, but we think that it is important to have an adult friend ask a child, hey, how do you think you did on that science test you were worried about? Or to have a 30-year-old and a 70-year-old just chat about life after the service or while working on a project together. Though we do not require everyone to share the same beliefs, you'll still find if you chat with us that we have many values in common. We believe in science, reason, the equality of all, and the need for equity. We know that Black Lives Matter, we value reproductive justice, and we celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community. We work to make love the doctrine of our lives and to put it in action through service in this church and out in the world. So, that's a little bit about us. We hope that after the service you can stay and chat and let us know a little bit about you. May we celebrate the possibilities and the promises of this day together. Every week when we gather, we share pieces of our lives with each other. We share our sorrows so that we may offer comfort to one another, and we share our joys so that we may celebrate together. And for those of you at home, please share in the chat box any joys or sorrows that you are carrying today. In this religious community, we hold with reverence the knowledge that every time we get together, a multitude of different emotions and experiences are being brought together into this space. One of us may be celebrating while one is weeping. One may be filled with determination while another is filled with despair. The mosaic of all of these experiences is holy, and we honor all with our witness. And now, our big idea.
This is a story of stone soup. It's a slightly different version than what you may know, and any similarities to anyone that you may know or recognize in the story is purely coincidental. Once upon a time, 3 scholars were traveling along a live oak tree-lined road discussing many things, like the color of the sun, the size of the sky, and the spirit of community. "How do we build the world we wish to see?" asked the youngest of the scholars. "Let's find out," said the eldest. The sound of a bell brought their gaze to a village. On the whole, this village had everything it needed. There were lawyers and bankers and teachers and musicians and software programmers and baristas and Dungeons and Dragons players and artists and stay-at-home parents and even Ted Lasso viewers. Their kids were smart and savvy and had learned comprehensive sex ed, and a lot of them even had a sarcastic sense of humor like their parents. But there was a great uncertainty in the village. Presidents, a plague, and Putin had made the village untrusting and suspicious over the past few years. The villagers worked hard but didn't get involved with the rest of their community much. What was the point? Nothing ever changed because nobody ever changed it. When the 3 scholars arrived in the town center, the villagers disappeared into their houses and closed their windows. It wasn't that they weren't friendly, but they didn't welcome the newcomers to town because they figured somebody else would do it. They were tired of protesting, tired of voting for people who never won, tired of writing their local leaders, just tired. The scholars noticed this and sighed. They knocked on the first house they saw, but there was no answer. The house was dark. The scholars then knocked on the second door, but the same thing happened. No response. They tried a third door and a fourth. Again and again, no one welcomed him. These people do not have a vision of the future anymore, they all agreed. But today, we will show them how to do this. We will make them some stone soup. They began by gathering twigs and branches to make a fire in the village square. They pulled out their tin pot that they filled with water from the village well. People peeked through their windows and said to themselves, "I respect their inherent right to enter my village and make themselves a meal. If they are hungry, they should eat." But they didn't leave their homes. Finally, one brave little girl came to the town square and asked the scholars, "What are you doing?" "Making stone soup," the scholars replied. "Can you help us find 3 stones?" The girl helped them find suitable stones, and the scholars added them in. Soon the scholars said, "This pot is too small. I wish we had a larger one." "My moms have a big pot," the girl said. "We used it for last year's water communion. It's handmade by indigenous women in Peru. We bought it at 10,000 villages. I can go and fetch it." The little girl's moms asked what the strangers were doing. The girl replied, "We're making stone soup." Her moms followed her out to watch, and slowly other villagers came out one by one to see what was going on. Soon there was a lot of activity in the town square. Stone soup should be well seasoned with political involvement, but we have none. "I can get involved in local politics," said a villager. "Maybe run for local city council?" "How about flavoring this with the arts? Art always adds so much flavor to a soup," said a scholar. A villager said, "I have a talent for art. Maybe I could commission a public mural in the park." By now, most of the villagers were yelling out what they could contribute to the stone soup, and it was starting to smell wonderful. They ran to their homes and came back with everything the scholars needed: working to improve public education, fighting for police reform, demanding an end to voting restrictions, organizing women's marches. Even the children added to the soup. They brought joy and laughter and dreams. It was then that something magical happened. As each person took an action to improve the soup, the next took an even greater one. As this happened, the soup grew richer and even more delicious. At last, The soup was ready. How invested the villagers had become. They gathered together with an appetite they hadn't felt in a long time. Together, everyone sat down to eat, which they hadn't done for as long as anyone could remember. After, they told stories and sang songs long into the night. They unlocked their doors and took the scholars inside. In the morning, everyone gathered around to say goodbye to the visitors. As they walked away, the scholars reminded the village, with the inspirations you gave last night, you will always have plenty. Inspiring the future makes us all richer. To think all we needed to be reminded of our vision was stone soup.
Every week, we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity, combining our resources to support the ministries of this church. Part of our mission is to empower dreams, and this Sunday, we will be sharing the offering with Casa Marianella to help empower their dreams to provide the only homeless shelters in the area that are solely for immigrants, most of whom are seeking asylum. They also include space for women and children and support services for these groups. We now invite you to go to liveoakuu.org and click on Donate.
Your words like claws pull me into your golden cage. I don't mind, and matter of fact, I ate the key. Your kiss like moon pull me into the lies. I don't mind it. I lay down and stay the night. I know you're not the one, but I don't mind. My friend just say I'm wasting time, but it's better than nothing. You're just another way to know the pain. Maybe one day I'll make some sense when things don't feel so heavy. Like the water in the wind, like the sand pulls me in. I'll make some sense when things don't feel so heavy. Like your hands on my skin, like the tears that you bring up. Make some sense when things don't feel so heavy. Heavy. My mind so cold, into dim now I'm holding on. I can't fight it, I just try and keep it strong. My lights turned off, that's the way that you like me, huh? But I can't fight it, I don't wanna play on. I know you're not the one, but I don't mind. My friends just say I'm wasting time, but it's better than nothing. You're just another way to numb the pain. Maybe one day I'll make some sense, but things don't feel so heavy. Like the water in the wind, like the sand pulls me in. I'll make some sense when things don't feel so heavy. Like your hands on my skin, like the tears that you bring up. Make some sense when things don't feel so heavy. Heavy.
Happy Ostara. Today is the day that ancient and modern pagans have celebrated the spring solstice. It's a time for blessing and planting seeds. So, Live Oak and friends of Live Oak, what is it that we want to plant? What is it that we will find so compelling that we will want to bring to it our hearts and our souls and our time and talent and treasure? This October, we will be celebrating the 30th anniversary of Live Oak, and there will be time for us to do a lot of looking back and telling stories and thinking of all that we have accomplished. And this church has accomplished in those 30 years so much. But today, what we're going to be talking about in the service and afterwards is the future. What do we want Live Oak 2032 to look like? What would be really helpful right now would be if I had a time machine. It would be really helpful if I had a time machine. Oh, what is that big blue box? It really is bigger on the inside. Whoa! Oh my gosh. Wait till y'all hear what I have to share with you. That was amazing. I wound up, teriyaki taco. Highly recommended. I wound up at Live Oak on a Sunday in 2032, and I can't wait to share with you all the things that I saw and all the conversations that I had. Starting with that taco. Apparently now on Sunday mornings about noonish, a different food truck arrives in their parking lot. They started it, I heard, like one Sunday a month. But what they did when they did it is like they got into the neighborhood groups, all the neighborhoods around the church, and they said, hey, this truck is going to be at our church at noon. You're welcome to come on over. Well, like food, right? Great food. It was such a hit that they wound up saying, okay, we got to do this every Sunday. Great way to support local businesses as well. And it was a great opportunity for their neighbors to get to know them and for them to get to know their neighbors. Unsurprisingly, many of their neighbors had never heard of Unitarian Universalism, the best kept secret in town. So they got to know, they asked questions, and members told them about what Unitarian Universalism is. And also, not surprising, some of those neighbors said, oh, I think that I have been a Unitarian Universalist all my life, but didn't know it. And we said, yeah, we get that a lot. In fact, some of us have said it. Now, the music, there was music going on, live music, and that happened, I chatted with some people. They said that just kind of happened a little bit more organically. They had been very deliberate about wanting to make Live Oak a second home for local musicians. So once they did that, you had musicians who were already here on a Sunday, and people are outside and they're eating tacos. Well, of course, those musicians, they go and grab their guitar from their car, grab their fiddle, grab the harmonica, and boom, all of a sudden, it's a hootenanny. So that seems to happen a lot for them around there. Now, I will say, I think that one of the things that helped that along was their covered pavilion, because You know, it's just like when we have some picnic tables here in Live Oak 2022, and when those appeared, all of a sudden, people just kind of naturally started saying things like, hey, why don't we bring our lunches on Sunday? Why don't we bring a cooler? Hey, why don't we put some games out there? And the same kind of thing happened with that covered pavilion. Once they had it out there, it was being used in ways they couldn't even imagine. They love it. They said that it pretty much gets used year-round because, you know, when it's warm, they have fans out there. When it's cold, they have heaters. It's kind of the other fellowship hall. And it gets used not just by members, but by, you know, renters. It's used for, weddings and family reunions, a lot of different public events. It's part of their church being a community center for all. They love that thing. And like I said, the musicians, I think it helped with the whole music thing because you know how musicians are. Like, it's a covered thing and there were electric outlets. It's a stage, right? Every Sunday for Live Oak 2032 is, well, it's a holiday. And with that, they were very deliberate about it because things had been so heavy for so long, and they felt like we need a day that everyone can look forward to. What do we need to do to make that happen? Like to have a holiday that comes once a week. First thing they did is they said, okay, no more business meetings on Sunday, but boy, they sure have a lot of other kinds of meetings. Great worship, of course, with fabulous music led by Dr. Curtis White. Amazing. You didn't know I was going to say that. Amazing faith development classes for all ages, including adults, because we want to grow. We want to continue learning how to be better at being anti-racist. We want to be able to go deeper into our faith that sustains us. But then, the food trucks roll up and people are outside and having lunch, and there's chalice circles that are meeting, all different kinds. There's spirituality groups. They got a pagan group and a Christian group and a Buddhist group. There's a movie group. They watch a different movie every Sunday. There's, of course, the book clubs that have always been kind of core to Live Oak. Those continue happening. Yoga, of course, because it's a UU church. And games. Oh my gosh. Live Oak 2032 is so into their games. Games for all ages. When it's nice outside, there might be some kind of game outside, and it's 2032, so like literally all different kinds of games. This choice that they made to create a holiday that came once a week is irresistible. But it's not just about fun and games for Live Oak. They see this as the refreshment after a week of doing good. Things happen spontaneously. You can never tell. When I was there, it was a luau. They've made it easier for things to happen in this sort of organic way. But again, during the rest of the week, they are out there and they are doing good things. And so Sunday is what fuels them up. It is the celebration, it is the coming together, it is the sharing of stories. Live Oak in 2032 and Live Oak in 2022 is geographically in kind of a weird place, right? Like if it were a game of Twister, Live Oak would have one hand in Austin and one hand in Cedar Park and one foot in Round Rock and another foot in Leander, not to mention La Vista and Lakeway and everything else. But Live Oak 2032, they just look at it all as their parish. They see that whole area as being something that they have some responsibility for. It's not just about their members. And they decided something. They decided, yes, we draw from all these different parts of the parish, but our goal is not to be the best church in the parish. That's not their goal. They're not there to be the best church in the parish. That's their goal. They want to be the best church for the parish. And the way that they achieved that is they started asking one simple question, just 4 words. Close. How can we help? And it wasn't accidental. Like, they talked about that. They said, this is something we're going to do. They teach it in the new member class. They challenge each other to ask that. And so if someone happens to be, rubbing elbows with one of the local mayors, they ask, how can we help? If they're talking to a school principal, how can we help? If they're talking to their neighbors, how can we help? I talked to a couple of people about this because it sounded kind of daunting to me, and a little awkward, to be honest. And they said, yeah, that happened, that they had some members and minister who felt uncomfortable with it at first, because what if they were asked to do something that they couldn't do? What if they were asked to do something that they didn't want to do? And then someone, when they were having this discussion, said, I think it was a kid, actually, because kids often ask the best, most insightful questions. The child asked, why can't we say no? Oh yeah, it's just a question. Just to ask the question is not a commitment. It's seeking information. And so sometimes Live Oak 2032, they said no, right? There were some things that they couldn't do or they didn't want to do. Well, the way you can help is to give us half of your property for parking. Ooh, we're not willing to do that. But let's talk. Maybe there's something else that we can do. They started asking this question, and amazing things started happening. And one of the things that happened right away. You'll see in this, I took some pictures while I was there. You'll see in this picture by the masks, I'm happy to tell you, 2032, the pandemic is over. I'm not going to tell you when it ended because some things, but by 2032 it's over. But as you can see, this, one of their early pictures, they started this. They're coming up on about their 10th anniversary of this particular program. One of the needs in their parish was for the youth, because the youth had not only gone through the pandemic, but imagine this, you who are a little bit older, imagine if a third of your life began in 2016. Sit there and think with that for a minute. 2016, end of 2016, right? How would you see the world? What would be the questions that you would have about meaning and about getting along with other people, about grace, about evil? Youth needed a place that was open and affirming deliberately to LGBTQIA+ kids, and frankly, they also just needed a place to hang out. And so when the church said, how can we help? It was really simple. It was, okay, there's this program some other churches have done called Pizza Church. Kids can get up, they have open mic, they have questions to discuss, questions about things that really matter. And so all we need is a couple of chaperones and a place to meet and some pizza. Can we admit that food is a big drawing thing for all of us, right? And so the church said, pizza's not that expensive. Okay, let's do this. So every Thursday night, going on 10 years now, they've had pizza church. The kids who come to it have changed. And now what's even happening is some of those first kids in the program have grown up and they have come back and they are being sponsors. They didn't do everything all by themselves, Live Oak, because there are some problems, some issues in the parish that are so much larger that you need multiple organizations. One of the issues in Williamson County is the issue of how do we help the homeless? Because in Williamson County, there really wasn't anything. In fact, some people say that back in the 2020s that officers from the Williamson County Sheriff's Department would pick up the homeless and drive them to the county line to deposit them in Travis County. True story. What do we do about the homeless? The thing is, there is no easy answer to that. Whether you call them the homeless or the houseless, that doesn't really narrow it down, right? Because it encompasses so many people. Yes, it is the person that we think of who is living under a bridge and has been doing that for so long that moving into like an apartment feels foreign to them and uncomfortable, but it is also the somewhat wealthy woman who packs up her kids and leaves an abusive relationship, and she needs a place to stay for about a month until she can make other arrangements. And so Live Oak 2032 and other churches in the area and synagogues and a mosque and the Hindu temple and civic organizations and the community ministries program all came together and created Beloved Community Village, modeling it on what has been done in other areas where there are different stages for the different types of homelessness that people are experiencing. One area of their property, they were so excited telling me about this, like it's nothing but tents, but it is safe, and there are restrooms and showers and food available, all the way through to fully furnished little homes. And of course, care, mental health care, physical health care, addiction care. It is amazing what groups can do when they learn how to work together. Now, some of the things, though, that Live Oak 2032 does are real little individual things because they ask, how can we help? When I say that they asked their neighbors, I meant that literally. There's apparently one member who lived in this area, and she had a neighbor who is a kindergarten teacher, and she said, hey, how can we help? And the teacher said, I'm having a really hard time getting enough people to come and read stories to the kindergartners. Okay, well, that was the kind of thing that some members of Live Oak 2032 were all over. Mr. George has now become like the most popular big kid in kindergarten, going down and helping. Others help out in different ways. And Live Oak said, we got an elementary school literally within walking distance of the church. We should have more of a relationship with them. That's also really important to Live Oak 2032. Everything just about is connected through relationship. But these people who were volunteering and helping out at the elementary school, they made a habit of whenever they were done and they were leaving, they would stop by the counselor's office. At this point, Live Oak had a great relationship with her, and they would say, how can we help? And so this one time, the counselor said, well, I don't know if y'all can help with this, but there's this, we got a kid in 3rd grade, and his mom, he was telling us about his mom. She's a single mom. She's working 2 jobs, and their fence just fell down. Like, can you help with that? So next thing the minister of Live Oak 2032 knows, she's getting a text that says, hey, we want to do this thing, and it's going to cost about $1,000 for supplies. And the minister says, and that's what the ministerial discretion fund is for, you bet. Few members, they go over on the weekend, fix the fence. There you go. They do stuff like that all the time. And part of it came, they said, through accepting their own limitations. Because often our limitations at not being able to do for everyone hold us back from doing anything. They decided that they were going to start operating on an ethic of let us do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. And so they don't hold it back. Some of these things they can only do for one person, but they at least do it for them, right? Like that story about the starfish made a difference to that one. This question about how can we help, they had known for quite a while that in their parish that there were people who were not homeless, right? They didn't qualify for a lot of the poverty programs, but things were so tight that every month, they were going month by month for the bills. How could they help them? So there's this organization, maybe you've heard about it before. Live Oak 2032 had heard about it multiple times. It's this great program where you can buy up medical debt for $100. You can buy $10,000 worth of medical debt. And you can even say, okay, I want to do it for this area. And so they did that. They did a big fundraiser. They said, okay, this area, our neighborhood, $3 million worth of medical debt taken care of. Their neighbors went to their mailboxes and pulled out what would look like a bill, but instead it said, your medical debt has been paid for. They do all these different kinds of things, big things, little things, and it also can be fun things that benefit them too. One of the things they kept hearing that was needed in their parish, they kept hearing this from those musicians. I told you they had tried to make Live Oak a second home for musicians, and those musicians kept saying, in our parish, our area, what we really need is a small event venue where we can go play. And so Live Oak said, some of the longtime members said, you know, once upon a time we used to have a coffee house. We did that once a month. Maybe now's the time to get that started again. And they did. And so you have musicians who are coming in for the coffee house, local musicians, occasionally a touring musician, and members from Live Oak who, well, let me tell you, in 2032, there are some names that have that are kind of famous. They started here. We can take some credit for that. All these things mean that they were growing. And they were having more influence in the community. Because when you ask, how can we help? And sometimes you're even able to help, people remember who you are. They have a lot of influence in 2032 in their parish, and part of that is because they have grown, because the larger you are, the more influence you have. But they also have influence because sometimes when they said, how can we help, someone said, can you come down and talk at the city council meeting? Can you come down and give a presentation to the school board? And they said, I'm not really comfortable at speaking in front of people, but okay, yes, I can do this. And after they had done that for a while, then some people started saying, can you run for office? That's really what we need. And so in 2032, there are Live Oak members on city councils and on school boards. And let me tell you, they are so proud of their member who is now the mayor. All of these things, they all work together. The fun that they have on Sunday morning is not disconnected from the rest of the week. It is that joy and that celebration, and that is irresistible People want to come and be a part of it. And when they are a part of it, then they also want to go out and do some of that good work out in the community the rest of the week. Because, again, Live Oak 2032, it's all about relationships. And coming up with something to do on your own sometimes takes a level of initiative and courage that is hard to find, especially when we're working and raising kids and everything else. But when you have a friend who says, hey, I'm doing this thing, would you come with me? It can be hard to say no. It can feel a little irresistible. And so, yes, the congregation has grown. When I was there on that Sunday, they were having church out in the pavilion. No, it was not because of another pandemic. I told you, that's done in 2032. They were having church out in the pavilion because they grew and they had to go back to 2 services, and they grew more and they had to go to 3 services. And so they said, okay, it looks like it's time to do another capital campaign. And so the Sunday that I was there were construction people there who were working on rebuilding a new sanctuary, one that can hold at least 500 people. It's all connected together. While I was in that time machine, I mean, if you have a time machine, like, you're going to go and do a few other things, right? I went into the past. I can tell you some stories. I also, because I am a UU minister and a big geeky nerd, had to go out and to the 1800s and hang out with, like, some of those Emerson and some of those, Unitarians of that time, because I had so many questions. And I was talking to one, James Freeman Clark, Unitarian minister and a contemporary of Emerson and all of those, and he said something to me, and he later would wind up putting it into a book. Now, before you start, don't look at the slide. Before you start reading it, can you use your universal theological translator, right? If there's any words, because this was written in the 1800s, if there are words that don't really fit our church or your theology, do a little sub. But I think that these words apply just as much right now as they did back then. He said, we think that it possible to have a church and even a denomination organized not on a creed, but on a purpose of working together. Suppose that the condition of membership was the desire and intention of getting good and doing good. The members of a church are not those who unite in order to partake the Lord's Supper or tacos, but to do the Lord's work, but to do love's work, but to do the work of building beloved community. The Sunday fun day, the Sunday holiday is their refreshment after working. When it comes right down to it, I don't really think that questions about the purpose of church are that hard. Get good, right? Because, like, you're perfect just as you are, and you could use some work, as the Buddhists say. We all want to get, like, all of us, we want to continue growing and getting better. Get good, do good, celebrate. Really, is there anything more than that? Get good, do good, celebrate. So I have had my time telling you about Live Oak in 2032, but for this little thought experiment, the world is a multiverse, and I have only described to you one of those universes that I have seen. After this service, after a little bit of cake, I'll explain that later, we're going to meet in there, and we're going to talk about what you see for this church in 2032. I invite you now to kind of center yourselves for a period of meditation and reflection. Remove any distractions from your lap. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. May we hear from the voices that are not in this room, the voices from the past, our theological ancestors upon whose shoulders we stand. May we listen to their dreams and visions, not as a to-do list that we are obliged to fulfill, but as inspiration and experience that we may draw from. May we hear the voices of the present, the voices of each other as we put words to the longings of our hearts, the calls to build the beloved community we hear in our souls. May we listen too for the voices of the present, of those who have not yet crossed our threshold, but who are searching consciously or not for this, their village. May we hear from the voices of the future, those we have seen, what we yet have not, who know the needs of those struggling to find wholeness, community, purpose, acceptance. May those voices somehow call to us, remind us of who we need to be and what we need to do. May we throw open the doors wider, not close them behind us. We drink from wells we did not dig. We eat from trees we did not plant. It is with gratitude and humbleness that we dare to dream boldly, building our castles in the air, then placing foundations beneath them. And let's hold that for a moment in silence. Amen and blessed be. Would you please now rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, For Flowers That Bloom About Our Feet.
Reverend Joanna said, there's not going to be formal religious education today because we're all going to be discussing in small groups our vision for Live Oak's future. So CT and Joel will be heading you up, getting you right in the fellowship hall. It's for all ages. We strongly encourage, we want to hear voices from kids and from our youth as well. But if you have a child who does not, you want to attend and your child does not want to attend, Harmony in the back will be happy to, pointing and waving, that's good, will be happy to take care of those children from 11 to 12.
Before we do that, right after the service, come out through those doors out to the fountain there. Mary Hinkstebeck and Doug Martin invite you to join them as they renew their wedding vows, which was scheduled for 2 years ago. And they would invite you also to celebrate with cake and good blessings. And then, yes, we will go into that room to talk about Live Oak's future and, yes, to quote Ted Lasso, today is all about dreaming and putting castles in the air. I know some of you are those analytical types, and you're like, but how will we do it? But this is the problem. Don't, as Ted says, don't bring an umbrella to a brainstorming session. May you go forward knowing that you are lovable and loved, that life is fragile and a gift, and you are not alone.
Recommit anew to carrying into our week the flame of justice and love. May we share with others the courage and strength we find here.